Hello, everyone. I'm Mike Koss, founder of caregivers, and welcome to another edition. I'm thrilled and delighted this morning to have Dhaval Patel with me. He is the founder and CEO of Lotus Labs. As the audience knows, at caregivers, we do like to focus not just on human interest stories, and we want to meet inspiring people. We also like to explore technology trends, right? What's coming down the pike, some interesting things that would help make the lives of those with special needs and their caregivers, allow them to live more safely, more securely, and live their best lives. So Dhaval kind of checks two boxes for me, frankly. I had a previous conversation. I found him to be very inspiring. And number two, his technology is quite interesting, and we're going to get into a bit of that. So, Dhaval, welcome. And before we jump into, I want to hear the audience to hear more about you. Let's jump right into it first, though. Tell us a little bit about your product and what problem you're trying to solve.
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me here, and honored, very kind of you. So for persons with limited mobility, such as veterans, seniors, and persons with disability, we've made this wearable ring that controls objects at home by pointing. And unlike typical home tech, like Alexa, there's no apps, no rewiring, and no internet.
Wow, that's amazing. We're going to get into that a little bit more shortly, because I think that that is certainly a key differentiator, right? So tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get here? What was your past like? I know from your profile, I saw you had a pretty heavy job at Apple. So, anything you can share with us about you, career-wise, how you got here, and a little bit about your personal life.
Yeah, sure. So, like you said, my name's Dhaval. I previously managed a division at Apple for iPhone, Watch, and AirPods. Before that, I was at the wall electronics company, Lutron. And so essentially my background's in hardware engineering with expertise in consumer electronics, as well as wall electronics. And so that's essentially been my background: electrical engineering and aerospace engineering, more on the mechanical side. And based on my own experiences is where sort of this product was born out of. So I was born with bow legs. Essentially, my legs weren't straight. And over the years, I've been on and off crutches myself. And a couple of years ago, while I was on crutches, I had just gotten into bed at the end of a long day, only to realize I had forgotten to turn off the hallway light. But I was too exhausted to climb out of bed, hop onto my crutches, hobble 10 feet, turn off the light, hobble back 10 feet, and get back into bed. Yeah. So I slept with the lights on the entire night and woke up in the morning not having slept very well, thinking, well, if someone like me, an engineer from Apple with expertise in wall electronics from Lutron, if I'm not even using smart home tech, who is? And so we built Lotus.
Okay. No, that's fascinating. So you're applying your own personal real life story to advancing a technology solution to help others. So I think that's great. I'm so happy to hear that. Let's jump now deeper into the product itself. You mentioned already, and I said I think the unique characteristic differentiator for your solution is it doesn't necessarily require all this sometimes complex and costly network technology and the frustration of configuring all these devices. And you mentioned, lack of don't need an application. Tell us more about the product, how it works, and what the first phase of this product looks like.
Sure. So, the way it works, a simple 3-step process. Step 1, you put this ring on, and there's a little button up top And I'll explain what this black strip does in a second. So putting on the Ring once eliminates the need to put a smart speaker in every room of your house, which is what you have to do today. And that's assuming you're okay putting smart speakers in private areas of your house, like bedrooms and bathrooms, which not everyone is comfortable with. Step two, for any existing wall switch, you can attach our module magnetically.
Nice.
So there's no rewiring necessary, which is also something you have to do. So for instance, if you want Alexa to control your lights today, you have to take out the old wall switch and rewire in a new wall switch, which connects to the internet to talk to Alexa. Then you have to repeat that process everywhere. So if you want smart lights in your kitchen, you got to rewire your kitchen lights, rewire your dining room lights, and rewire. And depending on the size of your home, that can cost up to $2,000 and 11 hours of rewiring time, not to mention a lot of effort.
Sure. And frustration, because anytime you get into the bowels of some of the technologies, it does get a bit frustrating, even for someone who considers themselves a bit, personal device and tech savvy, right?
Right. I mean, that was the reason why I hadn't done it myself. And so step one, you just put the Ring on. Step two, you snap this on. Step three, just like your TV remote, we use infrared. So just like your TV remote, all you do is point and click. Using infrared eliminates the need for apps, smartphones, or the internet. Basically, you get to go from home to smart home in seconds. But as we've recently learned, there are two other important benefits. So the second big benefit being you can take this with you wherever you go, which is really helpful for anyone with a disability when they go on vacation, but also really helpful for people living in rental apartments who can't upgrade to smart home tech today because of all the rewiring that's necessary.
Yeah.
And the third benefit, probably the most important one in my book, is network effects. So let's say for a second, you've done everything I just described. So you've rewired all your switches and you've put smart speakers in every room. Your dad or granddad, let's say, or grandma comes to visit you. Well, they can't use any of your smart home electronics, right? For starters, they don't have access to your smartphone. And second, they don't know what different things have been named, right? Is this kitchen light? Is this living room light? Is this left light or light number one? Versus with this, it's literally no different than them coming to your home and turning on your television, and vice versa. So you having it benefits them, and them having it benefits you, hence the network effects.
Yeah, the technology is portable, right? I would take if I went to my friend's house down the street, in theory, right, I could take the wall plate with me or a couple of them and
in fact,
slap it if they don't have one, right?
Yeah, exactly. If they don't have one, if they have one, you can kind of control their space as well with their permission, of course, if they've allowed it.
Of course. Yeah. No, that's fascinating. So let's talk a little bit about applicability. You talked about turning lights on and off. I assume if you've got, a fan, an appliance, maybe. I'm just thinking out loud. I mean, just.
Yeah, you nailed it. So anything that a wall switch controls, we can control today. And I'm just showing one type, which is called the rocker. This is more common in homes after 1970s. We also do the same for any switches that are toggle. So you flip them up and down, which is more common in homes before the 1970s. So anything that a wall switch controls, we can control. So that's lights, fans, appliances. But the neat part is, because we use infrared, we can also control televisions, no extra components needed.
Wow. Yeah, that's everyone needs, everybody loves their TV remote and all that. So if they go wear a Ring, and at least turn the TV on from there, that's great.
It's interesting that you say that. When we first started developing this, that wasn't we weren't sure if that should be high up on the list, but one of our kind of, and Apple sort of teaches this to you in sort of core detail. We believe in this human-centered design process, and so for the first 9 months before we even built anything, I was just interviewing people with different kinds of disabilities, no disabilities, caregivers, family members, domain experts, physiotherapists, occupational therapists, and orthopedic surgeons. And it was interesting over the months, more and more people would request that as a feature, saying, hey, I either, if I'm in a wheelchair, then it's too risky for me to lean over if someone's left the remote somewhere else, or it's difficult for me to get the remote. If I've dropped the remote, then forget about it.
Sure.
And so over time, that sort of that feature rose its way through the ranks.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, I when I first met you, Dhaval, I'm going to tell this brief story. I thought about it and I said, boy, just recently, my mother, who is in her 80s, she, for seniors, as we all well know, falling it could be just a disastrous situation, right? They're so fragile, and help may not be available, and you can't get back up. So my mother, who suffers quite a bit from arthritis, sometimes it got to the point recently where she was sleeping on the couch, actually sitting up for a few nights in their little TV room. My dad was asleep in the bed. Well, my mom was sitting on the couch sleeping. She got up. She had to go to the restroom, came back. All the lights were off. She turned the light off, and then she reached back to feel the couch in the dark to make sure she was hitting, the edge and getting back on the couch. And unfortunately, she missed it. And she was laying there for 2 hours before my father woke up and found her there. Thankfully, everything's okay. There's not a bad ending to that story, but just something as simple as having a ring on, leaving that light on, getting back on the couch and turning the light off it just saved a potential major problem. So
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. In fact, the last part of what you said really, really struck a chord. One of the interviewees, there's this common perception that these things are small, these things are little, why even build something for these things? It's just, it's just turning off the light, or it's just turning on the fan, or just turning on and off, or changing channels on the TV. Why do you need this technology? You have all this. And until you sort of go into the detailed nuances of the story of each human being, you don't appreciate these things. In fact, in the words of someone we interviewed, she was talking to me as I was interviewing her. She said, Dhaval, the thing that makes me feel disabled, this is a lady who can't stand up for more than 10 minutes at a time. That's the limitation in mobility that she has. She doesn't use crutches or anything else, but she just can't stand for longer than 10 minutes at a time. She was saying, Dhaval, the thing that makes me feel disabled isn't that I can run a marathon. That's not what makes me feel disabled. The thing that makes me feel disabled is when I have to call my 12-year-old daughter from another room just to turn off the light that's 10 steps away from me.
Yeah.
That's when I feel disabled. And that was the intent. While this technology helps anyone, can help anyone from a pregnant mom to a new dad, carrying a baby who can't get up because you don't want to wake up the baby, to someone with a temporary or permanent disability. As much as this could help anyone, we specifically want to focus on helping persons with disabilities, limited mobility, veterans, certain seniors, can spend up to 4 hours daily at home on self-care, not to mention the added risk of falls, like you were just saying, which is basically, especially for going to the bathroom at night in the dark.
Right.
That's such a common challenge because that's the catch-22, right? How do you find the switch in the dark?
Exactly.
Either you
And
leave it
getting
on,
up sometimes multiple times during the night, as we get older. You're not there yet, but I am, right?
No,
So I
absolutely. And that was
understand.
very much that we were very much trying to break that catch-22. And when we were interviewing folks during those 9 months, and even after, it's now just part of our process. We interview people on an ongoing basis. A lot of people told us we take off our watches when we go to bed, it gets caught up in my partner's hair, or just out of habit, I don't wear watches to bed. But lots of people told us that, some of them hadn't taken off their rings in 15 years.
Wow.
And so it seemed like the right form factor for this technology.
So speaking of form factors, I'm curious, show us the ring again. So the form factor itself, I mean, is this thing, do you have to have, is it expandable or is it a one size fits all or how does, what's the plan for that? Just very curious.
Sure, sure. So the ring will come in different sizes. And so just like basically just like buying a regular ring, you can specify your ring size, your finger
Mhm.
size, and you will have a ring that is for that size. So it's not one size fits all. In fact, to that end, we have this core design principle at Lotus, which is we build technology that is usable by everyone, but optimized for disability first. And the reason I say that is the line that you just mentioned, which is it one size fits all? We do a combination of what's called universal design and inclusive design. So universal design is one size fits all.
Yeah.
Inclusive design is one size fits one. And we do as a hybrid, that way everyone's included, no one's left behind. But the benefits of universal design are still obtainable to you, which is that it's scalable. And so a good example of this is, for instance, obviously different finger sizes are accommodated. The universal design aspect is the fact that it is the same technology no matter who's using it, right? It's always infrared. It's always just put it on, point and click. The inclusive design part is the fact that no matter what your situation is, you can use it. Now, all of these features aren't available yet. We have proof of concepts, but if you don't have a disability or you're deaf or you have a mobility disability or limited mobility, all you do is point and click, right? That's the simplest way to control objects. Low cognitive effort and low physical effort. But if you have arthritis and you can't bend your fingers this way, then you can use gestures to control the same things as well, to control these objects. And finally, if you've had a stroke or you're paraplegic or quadriplegic and you can't move your arm at all, you can also use your voice to control these same objects. It's still completely offline, but that's the idea, which is we meet you where you are at. You don't have to change. You can just be you.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love it. So tell us a little bit about availability. I mean, is this what's the process before it becomes generally available? What do you see as timeline? And you don't have to give us exact, but I did see on your website, and congratulations, by the way. It sounds like you have a couple pilots, two, three pilots. I'm not sure if they're off the ground yet or they're getting ready to go, but that's pretty exciting.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. So let me answer all of your questions. So in general, to get any new piece of technology out, usually rough time frame, it takes about a year. And we're maybe a couple of months into that. So I would say, December, Q1 next year, Q1 2024, sometime between January and March in 2024 is when I think this product will be out. Plus or minus a few months, we might be able to pull it in earlier, but I don't want to overpromise. So that's when it'll be available on the shelves, so to speak. The next big milestone, like you pointed out, is in about a month and a half from now. So in mid to late April, early May, we're going to have about 50 of these devices, somewhere between 30 and 50. And we would love to run pilots with people who really believe they can benefit the most from this technology. And so if there is an interest, if you would like to try this technology, if you believe it could benefit you or a loved one, definitely reach out. We would love to hear from you. We would love to interview you, understand your situation, send you this technology. Feel free to use it, give us feedback. That would be really helpful. The pilots that you mentioned are part of that process. We want to essentially make sure at no stage do we want to pretend that we know everything. And, I don't think technology should be built that way. The core principle to human-centered design is you build in the technology with lived experiences as part of the DNA, because not everyone has the same lived experience, right? Even if you find 10 people in wheelchairs using wheelchairs, not everyone has the same experience. And someone who has used a wheelchair does not have the same experience as someone who's used crutches, who's using a cane, who doesn't use any assistive tech. The lived experiences are truly diverse, and the more you get that, the better the technology. And so, hence the pilots. And so we're currently in process of doing pilots with everything from independent living, assisted living facilities and senior living
Mhm.
to independent living resource centers where the goal is to enable you to age in place to be in your own home. To actually certain states, we're working with certain public entities in certain state level organizations to actually deploy these in bulk. We're talking
Yeah,
thousands of units. Again, these are still in the works and it's early, but the whole idea is we would like to help as many people as possible, as quickly as possible. And so the pilots help us do that. They give us feedback.
sure. You've got a lot of moving parts, and the schedule is going to get even more interesting, it sounds. But I love the goal. I love the target market. Um, the part I like the best, Deval, and you mentioned it twice already. As you and your team are bringing this to market, and initially in the design phase, it's optimizing this solution for someone with a disability, but underneath that, more broadly speaking, it can be used by anyone, right? But so
Yeah, and in fact,
that's key.
it's funny when we talk about this, when I talk about this with the team, and I talk about this, externally too. Why shouldn't all technology be built this way?
Yeah.
Right? In many ways, for me, the product isn't the ring. The product is dignity. That's the product, right? And if I think of the company as a product, the product isn't what we're doing or selling. The product is this mindset. Why shouldn't all technology be built this way, right? There's no downside. If I build something that someone who's blind can use, and then I give that piece of technology to someone with sight, they don't lose anything. In fact, now you can use that same technology in the dark. You can use it when you're chopping onions in the kitchen. You can use it when you have allergies. It's never subtractive. It's only additive. And there's so many examples of this. In the disability advocacy realm, one common example that gets used a lot is curb cuts, right? Just
Yeah.
having those little ramps on the sides of curbs. Well, yeah, it's definitely helpful for someone using a wheelchair, but then it's also helpful for someone using a stroller. It's helpful for older adults. It's helpful for lots of situations. Same with the flat door nut handles. The straw was originally invented, out of a similar process. Closed captions, if you've ever used subtitles to watch a movie,
Sure.
originally built for people who are deaf, but we use them all the time when you're watching Netflix or someone's sleeping next to you and you don't want to wake them up. It's never subtractive. And so if there's one idea, if there's one thing that people take from our conversation, I hope it's to inspire the next generation to build technology that is always usable by everyone by optimizing for disability first, because nobody loses in that process.
Yeah. Boy, that's very well said. So thank you for that. So let's talk a little bit about beyond. Let's look out the next 3 to 5 years, if we could, just for a minute. I read some things, I believe, on your website. Maybe it's more phase 2, phase 3, where you can control other things around you in your life, in your house, such as water faucets and things like that. Can you talk a little bit about what you see for the future?
Yeah, sure. So the idea is we wanted to make sure this wasn't just a frivolous piece of technology, that it was genuine, it really solved a meaningful problem. There's this line at Apple that they teach you very early on, which is whatever you're working on, whatever technology or hardware you're working on, does it deserve to exist? And core to our mission statement, we wanted to make sure that the things you were able to do were things that were necessary. It didn't matter how much money you had. Those are things you have to do every day. And so if you think about the things you have to do every day, right? You have to eat, you have to use the bathroom, you have to shower, change your clothes. And to do those 4 things, you have to get up and move around the house.
Yeah.
But the underlying thing to those set of activities, those are called activities of daily living. The underlying requirements to do those things are you need a light source, right? In the morning, it's blinds. In the night, it's electric lights. That's why we started with that first.
Sure.
The second is to control appliances. So if you're in your living room, the most commonly requested one being TV. And then finally, you need to control and open and close doors, right? You're constantly switching spaces, going to the bathroom, leaving your bedroom. And so those are the things we want to be able to control. Now, of course, we're not doing that all up front, but next up, other than wall switches, which already controls lights, fans, appliances, and TVs now, we want to do drapes followed by doors next. And the idea is, you could be Jeff Bezos and have all the money in the world, but you're still going to need to do those things. And that's the idea, which is we want you to have sort of daily observable and tangible benefits, because that's the real genesis, right? We have to do those things anyway.
That's a great goal. And as I think about it, I've spent 40 years in the technology field, and sometimes we've all seen companies, whether we work for them or worked with them or just observed them, sometimes they try to take on too much, right? I mean, you've got to start somewhere and not overcomplicate things. Solve a problem and then expand from there. So it sounds like you have an interesting plan, and now it's just a matter of marketing and testing, etc. I've mentioned to you in our first meeting. So I live here in the Villages, Florida, which if anyone doesn't know about the Villages, Florida, a lot of people don't yet, but we're a population. It's a plus 55 community, population over 140,000. We're going to double in size, believe it or not, over the next 2 decades. It's crazy, but everything is accessible by golf cart. Most things are, and it's an incredible community. But what I see, the common theme here in the Villages, Dhaval, is you mentioned the phrase aging in place, right? We have almost, it's 99.9% single family homes here, which is mind-boggling to me. I would have thought at this point in my life we would all be living in condos, right? And just less maintenance. But no, I mean, people enjoy having a single family home to entertain their children or grandkids that come in, and they take great pride in caring for their gardening and their landscaping. But as we age, of course, mobility is becoming more and more of an issue and a challenge. So I'm going to certainly broadcast this podcast when we're completed. I'm going to fill up the Villages blogs with this thing, because I think certainly there's going to be a lot of people that it's going to get a lot of attention. And I think that's great. I mean, it's the goal for any of us that are aging, is to be able to live your life as normal as possible and stay in your house. So
exactly. I mean, the real goal here is for the user, it's independence and the dignity that you get from the independence that the ring brings you. For the caregiver, and that's kind of our vision. You asked this earlier, and I forgot to add this. Our vision is, in a couple of years, any person, older adult, veteran, disabled person, non-disabled person, anyone can stay healthy in their own home or wherever they choose to call home, because there will be a universe of ring controllable objects, making them more independent and alleviating caregivers, both paid and unpaid, because the end product is independence and dignity and peace of mind. And so that's the intent, really.
That's great. So as we wrap up this discussion, which I've thoroughly enjoyed, by the way, so thank you. And can you share, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I guess I will a little bit. Can you give us an idea of price points on these
Sure.
devices? And I realize, the immediate benefit, though, is you don't have this other network and speakers and this and that, where you could be paying, a few $1,000s, right? Just in devices and setup. So you've got you've got that advantage, I think, and benefit for the consumer right out of the gate, but just anything you could share as far as price
Yeah,
point.
yeah, sure. So the idea was to try and make this as accessible to everyone as possible. And so today, what you would have to do is put, say, an Alexa Echo Show in every room of your house. And that's just one half of the equation. Then you still have to purchase the receivers. And so what we wanted to do was, for the price of one Alexa Echo Show, we wanted to have a whole system. So one ring and 4 switch covers. And so we're thinking the whole system, one ring and 4 switch covers, would be somewhere in the ballpark of $250 to $300. We're early, so we're still figuring things out. But the idea is, for that price, you would generally only be able to buy one Alexa Echo Show, which is usually $299. And so the idea is, in that package, you've got a whole smart home that you can then take with you wherever you go. At minimum, that you have the ability to put one on every cover in every room at least, right, in 4 spaces. And so that's around, that's roughly the price point we're thinking of. Again, it may shift around a little bit as we build this more. But the whole idea was to make this really, really accessible. So it's a lot.
It's competitive. I mean, just, in that ballpark range, it's very competitive, and you're off and running, right? And don't have to keep building this thing around you. So that's, I love it. I first of all, I want to thank you again for spending time with us. I'm looking forward to helping get the word out to the general public, and anything you need from us at CevAdvotech, do not hesitate, please, to reach out. And I think you'll have a captive audience in a lot of places. So I wish you nothing but the best. Your heart's in the right place, and
thank you.
And thank you. We're always looking for stories, inspiring stories, for people like yourself that are advocating for people with special needs and disabilities. So thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me on. I would say, for anyone listening, if this resonates with you and this seems to be something that can help you or a loved one, feel free to reach out. Our website is www.lotuslabs.org. That's LOTUSLABS.org. And my own personal email, feel free to reach out. That's Dhaval, DHAVAL, @lotuslabs.org. We'd love to interview people, hear your stories. If you have other requests that you would like this technology to do or change, feel free to send us our way. And of course, if you would like to be one of the people trying the technology as part of our pilots, definitely reach out. So, but thank you again for having me on here. Right back at you. Congratulations on your 1 year doing this. And I think what you're doing is fantastic and wonderful. So please keep doing it.
Thank you. Thank you, Dhaval. I'm enjoying this, and thank you for being, technically speaking, my first guest to start off year 2 of CevAdvotech.
Hey, honored to be here.
That's awesome. All right. Well, thank you again. And to our audience, we appreciate you joining today. And please stay tuned for more from CevAdvotech. Take care now.